Inside the Birds is back. What's going on, everybody? Geoff, Mosher, and Adam Caplan here. This is going to be a fun Inside the Birds. We had a really interesting idea as we are in the kind of the part of the off season where there isn't a ton of news. Now, there is a little bit of transactional news for the Eagles that we will get to, but we had this idea about the Eagles being a team in 2023, Adam, that has a lot of expectations. A lot of people did not see them going to the Super Bowl. They thought they would be improved last year, but I don't know how many people felt that they were going to be in the Super Bowl and certainly up 10 points on the Kansas City Chiefs at some point in the Super Bowl. So that makes this year coming up, right, different than the last 2 years, because now the expectations are not only to get back to the Super Bowl, but to win it, finish it off. And even though that there's been losses, there have also been some key additions. And we've talked about this. We think the Eagles are a really good team, a very good 53, and they should be competing for a Super Bowl this year. Don't you agree?
I do to a degree, but the schedule, if you just look at the way that the teams that they're playing, like the roster,
sure,
and the coaching changes, which is what I don't look at last year. I look at the way teams are looking now. I mean, obviously, you look at the records of last year, but it's all about this year. Very rarely do teams stay exactly the same. So it's how these teams look. It's when they play these teams is obviously key.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, the schedule's really difficult, but you're right. Now, my only issue, and we're going to get into that because this is part of today's show, is the depth at certain positions is not as good as last year, at least on paper. Now, we'll see. They brought in a lot of new players. They lost 7 starters. That's got to mention that. It's our job to mention that.
Right.
Whether it was their decision or not. Most of them were their decision. Not all of them were. They made a decision to walk away from a lot of players. They're pretty open about it. The general manager was. Going back to the combine, it's kind of comical.
Yeah.
Jeez. Okay, you really want those compensatory picks? Okay, but
there you go.
The bottom line is, yes, you're absolutely right. The expectations should be very high, despite how hard their schedule is. This is a situation where they got this great offense. The coaching is really good, though they lost some coaches. We'll probably talk about that today as well.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, you're absolutely right. The expectations should be high, and no matter what, Eagles fans should think like if they're not the best team in the NFC, they're certainly one of the top 2 or 3.
Right. So because of that, because of the expectations for the Eagles now going forward, we thought it would be a good idea. There's going to be a lot of players this year that are under the microscope. A lot of coaches also under the microscope for different reasons. Some of them may be guys who have huge contracts and are expected to perform. Some may be guys who are first-round picks or rookies and also expected to perform. So we put together a list of players that we felt head into 2023 under the microscope. I sort of ranked them. It doesn't really matter, because once you're under the microscope, you're under the microscope. Doesn't matter. So we're going to give our list of players that we feel that there's a lot of pressure to perform on this year for various reasons, some just to even make the 53, and go through those and explain why. And it's a good time of the offseason to really do that, and it gets everybody kind of fired up and thinking about the regular season, while right now there's just not much because the Eagles are having OTAs, but they have fewer OTAs. They start later, they end earlier. And it's just a different animal like it used to be. So
right. So we don't, because of the way things are done now, and there's no real mandatory camp. We're going to wait till the end of their off-season program. Then we'll give you who looked good and who didn't look good. We did give you one nugget last year. Probably after the first 2 weeks, we're like, well, we're hearing Britton Covey is doing really well, and he continued to that. He continued to do well, but man, you and I were able to go last year. We watched him. We saw his short area quickness, but he didn't become the punt returner they thought he should have been until late in the season. Remember the second half, maybe 3/4 of the way in. But we're not, because we're not deep enough into it to even get any remote idea of anything. So we're going to just wait. We'll review the entire OTs, who we heard, who did well, who didn't do well, if there's anyone like that. But it's not like when Geoff and I were first covering the league, man, not only was it more physical, you gleaned so much information, but there's just not enough practices. But we'll have plenty. Not going to be a problem.
No doubt about it. So, dovetailing what we were talking about with expectations for the Eagles, you had them as your number 2 team in your offseason power rankings, which are up on InsideTheBirds.com right now. Of course, the Kansas City Chiefs number 1, but I was really fascinated to see how your top 10 was going to look, and I don't disagree with it. I think it's really interesting. It's kind of funny how you'll have 2 NFC teams in the top 3, But then you look at the next five teams, and most of them are from the AFC. As we know, the AFC is going to be a fight to the finish. And then you have your New York teams getting a little bit of buzz with one getting Aaron Rodgers. So I liked your all. It couldn't have been easy to do once you got past 7 or 8.
Well, it's funny. I was talking to Joe Banner in the last week, and Joe happened to say how the AFC is so much better. And it's funny. I remember I did these rankings like a week and a half ago, but I had I wrote them up for the our Inside the Birds website, and it was just funny to hear Joe talk about, man, he has a ton of respect for the Eagles roster. He really does. He's back in like he and I remember when he and I kind of argued in 2016, Peterson's first year. I'm like, there's no way they're making the playoffs. The roster's not good enough. He was like, no, you're wrong. The roster's really good. The next year they made the Super Bowl.
Yeah, the next year. But you were right. They weren't good enough that year. They weren't nearly as good enough to make
the but they had a losing record. Then they made the Super Bowl the next year, and I didn't think the roster was great in 21. I don't think anyone did. They still made the playoffs, and you and I went to the Dolphins camp, and we were both said, "Oh my, this roster's really good." No, but like you said, I didn't think the Super Bowl. There's just it's hard to predict that.
Right.
It's just hard because it's hard. You see it on the field because you see how talented they are, but can they put it together? Can Hurts have that jump like he did? You don't know that till you see it. We saw some great stuff. He did put it together, but it's all, and then you don't know about injuries and stuff. So yeah, you're right. Like if you move this forward here, this roster is really good. And when I did my top 10, my problem with the Niners is it's because of Purdy. Like the Niners, as I understand, they basically made a decision after that Eagles game. Yes, they got blown out and Purdy got hurt. If Purdy's healthy, he's their starter. Like there was no debate internally. But the guy's not started a full season. Like to not even give Trey Lance a chance. Look at all that they gave up for Trey Lance.
I know.
Trey Lance.
It's crazy. Right? They must see something else, And by the way, he did play well for a guy who was basically Mr. Irrelevant. But yeah, they must really feel like there's a lot to work with there, which is interesting because he wasn't. Again, in college, he was not even a consistent quarterback. But, you never know. Yeah, he got benched. That's right. So I wanted to quibble with where you had the Chargers. I'm not going to give out where it is. But I realized I had to look myself in the mirror and say, Geoff, you get suckered in by the Chargers every freaking year. All right? Every freaking year you think the Chargers are going to be good, and they're not. So that's more – it's not you. It's me. All right, it's not. You probably have the Chargers perfectly placed, and I'm the idiot.
Well, okay, I'll give you a little nugget here. I actually had them higher, and I moved them down because I can't get over the fact that their defense is underachieved so badly with Brandon Staley.
No doubt,
particularly in the secondary, they're just not good enough. They defensively they were terrible last season.
They're even, in my opinion, they're somewhat inconsistent at times offensively for having as much offensive talent as they have. So yeah, no, listen, you're 100% right. It's on me. But someday they're going to do really well. And then I'm like, if it's going to be like 5 years later, I'm going to be like,
well, maybe Staley gets together. Remember, they changed offense coordinators to your point.
Yep.
They moved on from Joe Lombardi, who's back with Sean Payton in Denver, and Kellen Moore.
Yep.
Cowboys fans didn't like him. They thought he tried to do too much and so forth. And Mike McCarthy, the real story is Mike McCarthy wanted to call the plays. He was more or less forced to give up play calling when he took over as the head coach. Well, give up the chance to call plays. Kellen Moore was like their golden boy there. He's a good play caller.
I do too. I think he'll be good for the Chargers. Yeah, I really do. And away from that, from Dallas,
they underachieve. I'm with you there. They should be better than they are defensively. Boy, how many interceptions did Trevor Lawrence throw? 4 or 5 in that game?
Oh God, yeah, it was 4. I think maybe it was 5. You're right. It was brutal.
And I think it might have been on the first half, and they still lost.
Yes, I know. It's crazy.
How is that? You can't lose.
No, you can't. Listen, there's a reason why they call it chargering, my friend.
Right, exactly. Right. A lot of people use it. Right. So anyway, no, I like doing the power rankings. It's fun because you really get an idea without looking at schedule, just how good teams are. And I like asking people on the league, hey, what do you think of this team? And particularly pro personnel people. And so forth. But man, there's a super high respect for the Eagles and the way they do business and how good their roster is. But I do worry about their depth. And we'll, as time goes forward over the next 6 to 8 weeks before training camp, we'll certainly be talking about that.
Yes, we will. All right. We did also talk about the schedule with Greg Cosell. We did a 2-part series. We broke the schedule in half, and Greg gave us fantastic intel on all of the teams. And you know what? It was really cool. It was like quick hit style, but there was still a lot of really good intel on each team, whether it was a scheme change, a rookie to watch, a newcomer to watch, a head coaching change. It flew by quickly, but I thought it was fantastic. It was one of the better things we've done. Just going through the schedule like that with Greg.
Yeah, in fact, if you're driving to the shore, the nice thing is Geoff said we split them up, so both of the pods are not very long. In fact, are they both under half an hour?
No, the first one was a little bit longer. The second one was under a half hour.
Okay, so you're basically around an hour for both. So you get that in, you get today's show. So there's plenty of good listening for you if you're on the beach. And boy, the weather looks like it's going to be good this weekend.
Yeah, it should be nice. It's finally getting warm. I'm enjoying that, especially for all the softball I've been coaching. So it's tough to do that when it's like 50 degrees and 48 and 46. All right, Andrew DeCecco, I had him do the same thing we're doing. He's also writing up his players that he feels are most under the microscope going into 2023. So that'll be up on InsideTheBirds.com. Make sure you check that out. And remember, InsideTheBirds.com is presented by Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City. It's the exclusive Jersey Shore resort of Inside the Birds. We did have an Ask ITB live stream on for our Patreon subscribers, but we picked a terrible time. That was my fault. We're going to probably do another one. Big thanks though to Eddie and Miguel for joining us, and a couple of our new subscribers too as well. Yeah, we did that on Tuesday?
Right.
Yeah.
We're going to do it this Tuesday, the 30th.
Right. After everybody's back from the break.
Exactly. At around 8:30 Eastern. And then we got our Chalk Talk really coming up. We're going to do that with either a coach or a former executive.
Yep.
And then we'll announce our plans for training camp in terms of what kind of stuff we'll have new for Patreon. I've got a couple ideas, which are a couple things we've not done before. So we'll do that. And that's right. The Eagles have the Browns that are coming in. And they were there. Yeah. Right. Was it the Browns are coming in?
Browns. Yes, it was the Browns. Yeah.
Yeah, so they're coming in, and they were there last year, so I look forward to that. And by the way, the roster is absolutely loaded on offense, so they're going to be better. And so just go to patreon.com/InsideTheBirds if you want to join our growing list. We've added a couple dozen subscribers the last couple of weeks, and we look forward to seeing you guys when we do that live stream coming
Love
week.
it. It's one of my favorite things that we do. All right, let's get into some of the transactional news. The Eagles signed a wide receiver who has somewhat of a familiar name and have been kicking tires in another area. So as far as the guy that they signed, Adam, Charleston Rambo. I freaking love that name. I don't know why. Maybe it's the Rambo thing. The whole thing works. Charleston Rambo. It sounds very regal and stately. I'm Charleston Rambo. But anyway. Wide receiver, he played with Jalen Hurts at Oklahoma
for 1 year, right, at Oklahoma, and then at University of Miami, and he was with the Panthers last year as an undrafted free agent. Has decent size. It's just when we were doing our 53-man roster breakdowns, our early projection, this is where whether it's Joe Nada, obviously Devin Allen, who they're trying to make a receiver. Hasselwood, Jadon Hasselwood is an undrafted free agent. Somebody could challenge to be Tariq Cleveland. Someone could push for a sixth spot. There are definitely some really good camp competitions. Someone to open some eyes and push for a roster spot and make it tough on the coaches. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, do you think the familiarity with Jalen there means anything? I don't know that it does. I mean, maybe it just helps him acclimate.
But it doesn't hurt. Look, the bottom line is, past Zacchaeus, and Quez Watkins, who's their fifth receiver?
Don't know. A lot of darts to throw. A lot of darts. Yeah. And then again, we've talked about that's usually a spot where you want some kind of return specialist, right?
Sure. Covey, right? Covey's got to be.
Yeah.
Covey's got to be a better slot receiver. Like that's what when we put the nugget out last year in May or June, we were expecting him to be a factor of the slot. He really wasn't. He was. And quite frankly, if they would have cut him as a punt returner early on, it wouldn't surprise me. Now, kudos to them for hanging on. He was better. Now, what we had heard was the blocking could have been way better to help him out. But he was sort of like, what were we saying, a crash dummy or something?
Crash test dummy, yeah.
Right, I remember you saying that, man, they light him up. And that's what happened.
Yeah.
But he got better. He definitely got better in the second half.
Like in those old Volvo commercials. Remember the crash test
Yeah,
dummies? They were
right.
like,
I could now you're making me think about it though, the white crash dummy, yeah, and then and
yeah.
they squash the but so look, the bottom line is that there's going to be some competition in training camp, and yes, Greg Warder's still there as well.
Yes. All right. They waived offensive tackle Jared Williams, which I don't think either of us had Jared Williams on our early 53-man projection. So we're still good there. They've signed now 6 of their 7 draft picks. The only one who is not signed is Keely Ringo, Georgia kid, 4th round cornerback. I don't know. Do you think that has anything to do? These things are usually slotted. Like there's only so
They're all
much he can
slotted.
make.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're all slotted, but there is wiggle room in certain areas. Do you think him supposedly being like a 2nd or a 3rd round talent who got picked in the 4th, does that have anything to do with it? Or?
No. What typically happens is, and there was this weird thing, it happened 2 years in a row. There were a couple 3rd round, like actually more than a couple. There might have been 4 or 5 3rd round picks.
Yeah.
Who signed like no one was signed late, but they might have signed like a week before training camp, which is ridiculously late these days. There's no drama anymore with draft picks. It's just really not because once the slotting system came in, like we have in the NBA. So, no, now if he's not signed by, folks, we'll look in. If he's not signed by July 15th, and there's something really weird going on because there's agents tell us that, like, you might let's say a 4th round player like got an advantage. Let's say he got his signing bonus money. The deferral is instead of next March, it's like September 1st this year.
Right.
The clubs don't like doing that, and that could be a problem. That could be a little bit of a holdup. There's usually some really odd holdup. There was for 2 years, like 3rd round picks, a handful of them were signing late, and it was because of structure.
Yep.
And these agents did not like what some of these one agent did or something like that, and there was just some weird stuff that was going on. But again, there's no drama anymore. These guys sign on time because there's really not much to bargain with anymore, other than when you want to get your money, a couple other miscellaneous stuff, but nothing major anymore.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if Ringo wasn't signed soon. But if he's not, you're right. Then it sort of puts your radar up to wonder what's going on there.
Yep.
All right, offensive line. We'll get into that in a second. First, I want to pause real quick to hear a word from some great sponsors. All right, we know that offensive line depth is really huge for the Eagles, and we also know that even though they did draft Tyler Steen, right, when you lose Sayamalu and you lose Andre Dillard, who else did they lose? Is Opeta back with the team? He
Yes,
is back
he's
now.
still there.
Okay.
Yep,
At one point, he was gone, but obviously,
Right.
when you lose a 1st round pick who was a good backup and then a starting right guard, then you've got to replace them. So Eagles are wisely kicking the tires at him on some offensive linemen who might be out there, including what was it, DJ Fluker, who had a workout with them?
Yeah, he worked out on Wednesday. What happened was he's kind of reshaped his body. I heard about this a while ago. I don't know when he lost the weight. I don't know how recent it was. The word in scouting is that he's going to try to make a comeback. He hasn't played since 2020. And look, obviously he got the workout for Geoff Stoutland. As we speak here Thursday morning, there's nothing imminent on a signing. Obviously, it could change in an hour from now. 6 a.m. Eastern is when a lot of you are hearing this. We know a lot of you early birds and the farmers out there hear us at 6 a.m., which we appreciate. But look, it could change in an hour, and obviously Stoutland knows him, and he's been with the Eagles before. So when you look at it, he's a guard right tackle. As I was told by a strong pro personnel source, he's a guard that you can play right tackle to pinch, but you don't want him to play guard. He's not athletic enough. You can do it because he's a power player, but he was basically a overhyped power player from Alabama, never lived up to it, and became a journeyman. He kept moving on from team to team to team, and the weight is part of it. He was really overweight for a majority of his career, but hey, and I'm going to give you the list, by the way, of guys who there are a lot of good guards out there. Now, the reason why some of these guys are out there, they're getting humbled. They're not getting the money they want. Rutger Saffold is out there. Thilton Reisner is how you pronounce it. Longtime starter who was a major media hype. This guy told me, he's nowhere near the hype that people made him.
I think Dalton Reisner thought he was probably going to be signed in the first week of free agency.
Again, exactly, and he got humbled. Justin Pugh, Philly's own, Philly area, Bucks County, from Syracuse.
Former Giants and Cardinals guard. Yep.
Correct. And he could play right. He's played right tackle before. He's come back from an ACL. Trey Turner, we must have talked about him 50 times since we started the show in 2018. He was an elite guard like 6 years ago. He's not very good. Let's call it like it is. He wasn't very good 3 years ago when the Panthers, the Chargers, the Steelers, the Commandos. I mean, they all don't want him, but Ron Rivera brought him in because he had him in Carolina, but he's still out there. Mike Remmers, he's a journeyman. He's a power player. He's a right tackle, could play guard. And Laurent Duvernay-Tardif, who was a longtime starter for the Chiefs and then he left, to help out in COVID.
Yeah, it's Dr. Laurent to you, by
That's
the
right.
way.
You're right. Dr. Laurent Duvernay-Tardif, and he was with the Jets. He's out there. The top tackles are out there. George Fant is a good player. Signed a big free agent deal with the Jets, but he's had knee problems.
Mm-hmm.
Right tackle, left tackle, Chris Hubbard, who's been a sixth offensive lineman for the Browns for a couple years, and the Steelers. He's a guard right tackle. Brandon Shell, I was told, is really only a right tackle. Has been with the Dolphins, the Jets, and the Seahawks.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of these guys are better than Fluker. But again, as you were talking about Reisner, yeah, I mean, he's a guy who's probably won a lot of money. Saffold is a good player, but has had a lot of injuries. He's older now.
Isn't he like way old, Roger Saffold?
Yeah, he's in his early 30s, but he's started a ton of games. But he's only a guard. That's the problem. See, you really want a guy like, not that you want Fluker, but at least he could play right tackle and guard. If the Eagles went up signing him, at least he's done it. Pugh's done it. Remmers has done it. Hubbard has done it. And Fant could play either tackle. He's not a guard, but he's a tackle. He could play both tackles, and it was a guy. I got to give the Seahawks credit. Someone in the front office, I remember, found him at might be George Mason. I know he's a basketball player, and that was a heck of a find for him. And unfortunately, he tore his ACL a bunch of years ago, and his knee acts up a little bit. But now there are other guys. Once this list gets picked over, we'll talk closer to training camp. Now, there are like 7 to 10 other guys, but these guys are really lower level guys you really don't want to sign unless you absolutely had to.
Yeah, I would definitely kick the tires on Saffold not Saffold. Well, yeah, but also Reisner. I mean,
tackle.
I'm guessing Reisner's waiting for somebody to get hurt.
Yeah, I mean, on that, Saffold and Reisner have to look at themselves as starters. If they're not signed by late July,
mm-hmm.
and Fant too, this is where guys have to make a decision. Get a veteran minimum deal with incentives, but do you want to have a chance to win a Super Bowl? Sign in Philly.
Yeah. Yeah, I would definitely kick the tires on Fant also. I mean, he can play when he's healthy.
Yeah.
Player. So I spent a lot of time watching tape of Fluker, DJ Fluker, when I was going through the scouting academy. I was assigned on offensive lineman. Fluker was one of my 5 assigned offensive linemen to watch tape. So I wound up watching when he was with Seattle. I want to say is when I started to watch tape of him. I forget because he was there for a couple of years. He actually played decently there one year, but I would say this one thing I noticed about him, Adam, just glaringly jumped out on tape, which is surprising, is that he has a really bad habit, or he had a bad habit at the time, of putting his head down at the point of contact. You just jump off the snap, you get engaged, and his head, he would look, you could see it. I mean, you'd almost see the back of his helmet because it would almost be parallel with the ground. And not surprisingly, he's had some concussion issues. So when you're putting your head down at the point of contact, that's a bad thing. So it always just stuck out to me. It feels like he's a guy who could have been a lot better if he, like you said, maybe had got himself in better conditioning and just had some better technique and footwork and form. Yep. It's kind of weird how some Alabama guys did so well there, like Womack, right? Or Warmack. I mean, Warmack. But just never really did it at the NFL level, and then they got exposed at the NFL level. So just interesting stuff on Fluker. Talented kid in some respects.
Yeah. I mean, if Fluker wasn't here, I mean, he just knows that he never played for the Eagles like Warmack did. But he obviously, what I was just talking about, Statland, because Statland knows him, and he was a first round pick in 2013.
Yeah, long time ago. Crazy. All right, we are going to move on and talk about our players under the microscope. First, I want to tell you it's Ocean Casino Resort's 5th birthday this summer. which is right around the corner, and they can't wait to celebrate with you. So join Ocean for exciting promotions and sweepstakes. Headline Entertainment, the best day life and nightlife lineup in AC, the debut of the Birthday Bar, exclusive local collabs and partnerships, commemorative 5th birthday merchandise, and so much more. Don't miss stunning fireworks and unique events all summer long. Ocean Rewards members will enjoy over $5 million in gifts and prizes, so be sure to sign up for an Ocean Rewards card to get in on the fun next time you visit. All right.
By the way, we
Yes.
just visited there.
We
What
did
an
visit.
awesome place. Wow.
Amazing.
Beautiful.
Pristine. I mean, it really is a nice. I know some people don't love Atlantic City because it's like Atlantic City, but you go over to Ocean, which is a little bit. It's on the northern part of the island. It's further removed from the others, and it's like you're in a different world. It's just so nice. It's clean. The people there are great. They've got a ton. You and I can say that they've got a ton of great ideas going forward for combining like sports entertainment with what's going on in their sports book, and it's going to be a rocking summer there. I would encourage everybody to check out Ocean. It's an amazing place.
I would not be surprised if we do something with them for the fall, but hey, we'll see what happens.
We will see what happens. All right, so let's go through our players under the microscope. And again, for different reasons, guys are under the microscope. It could be they just signed a huge contract. Could be they're trying to make the team. But it's all folds into what's going to help make the Eagles the best team they can be in 2023.
And I'm adding coaches too.
Coaches, yeah, we'll talk coaches as well.
Yeah, for sure.
So, Adam, I'll start with mine because I think we both were on the same. I kind of ranked mine 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, but it doesn't matter if you didn't. This is me. I think we have this on the same vein on this. And actually, I could have made an argument for this guy being number 1. I just happened to put him 5. Jordan Davis. There is no question that if the Eagles want to be better this year, and sort of be able to move on from some of their major losses up the middle on defense, which there are a lot, Hargrave, there's 2 starting linebackers, 2 safeties, that Jordan Davis has to be a lot, not even a little, a lot better and more prepared to play than last year.
Yeah, the weight, we noticed, we've probably said this 10 times since February. What we were told was he's came into really good shape to their offseason program. He's been very diligent. That's great. And I don't even know how to say this, as I heard, I don't know, a month or so ago. So I just don't know how to, basically, it's not that he was not taking his job seriously last year, but he's definitely understanding responsibility, what it's like to be a pro. He's actually a really good kid.
Mm-hmm.
Really nice kid. Gets it. I think I hate to say the light's going on yet, because until we get to training camp, until we can see what his stamina is, because you can lose all the weight in the world, but it's about your conditioning. We're still not going to know about the condition until he gets through at least a week of training camp, in the dog days of training camp in the heat. Because last year, man, we saw him in training camp, and the tape showed he just clearly was not in good enough shape. But I know that part about it is really good in terms of being in better shape. And from what I've heard, he's he knows, he gets it. This is a big year for him. He gets it.
That's
the responsibility of it.
Yeah.
But I'm hesitant to go all in until we see him in training camp. I've been fooled before, man, doing this business for 24 years, seeing it. And right when I think I'm ready, say, yeah, man, this guy's going to be great. Something happened,
Yeah.
So,
100%. 100%.
So far, so good.
Yeah, no, so far so good. I expect him to be better. I agree with you. Sometimes the kids who come in year 1 who are really good, high character kids, it's I don't know if there's a tentative or a lucklessness, but sometimes you gotta fight. You have to fight every single snap that you're out there. You got to play through whatever might be bothering you. And it's good if the light will turn on for him and get it going there, because they really, really need him. You and I both agree that if Jordan Davis is not any better this year than he was last year, the Eagles are in a world of trouble.
Think about it. Let's say it's much like last year, where he can only play in spurts because he wasn't in a physical condition.
Mm-hmm.
And Cox now being 32, you do wonder now at his age, is he, how many snaps is he going to play? Is he going to play full load, or who's going to be the rotational guy behind him? Yes, they have interesting depth with Milton Williams, Katavi Street, Ojomo, or Greg Cosell said he really likes.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact of the matter is, they don't have anyone really now can play the nose like he can. Tui Pelotu was hurt last season. He's got to. You're right. He's got to show up, and everything we've heard is good. But again, this is the all-season program. We'll see when it really matters to trade camp.
Awesome. All right. So here's how it'll work. I'll do my 5, and then we'll go and get your guys.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So my 4th guy under the radar. Curious to see how you feel about this. All right. I put him under the radar, under the microscope, because he can't afford to have a step back. He really can. And I'm not saying he's shown one. I think he has the capacity to be an even better player than he is. But I also think sometimes because of the way the offense is run, he can be hidden a little bit if he's struggling. And that's left tackle Jordan Mailata.
Oh, Mailata, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think he has the capacity to be amazing, really good. But there are times where I think in pass protection, because he's so big and he's still new to the position, that he gets edged a little bit. We see him struggle sometimes against the best pass rushers, but he gets hidden a little bit by the RPO-centric offense, by the quarterback's ability to get out of problems, by the quarterback's ability to run. But any kind of setback or regression from him, and again, they're going to play some pretty good teams this year, would be detrimental to the offense. So I just think he's a guy that I have under the microscope this year, meaning he's just got to be able to play at the level or higher than he's played at.
His hand usage, as I was told, is the challenge for him because, again, football, it's not natural to him. The athleticism is like rugby.
Yes.
But not the hand usage. And as Trey Thomas told us, it's a different hand usage than most teams use. He uses that catch technique, Stoutland, and he lets, they wait till they come in and then they hit instead of getting after him. And it's just a mindset. It's not easy. It's still not supernatural to him. It's getting better and better and better. His upside's tremendous to be a top 5 left tackle. He's not there yet. Yes, he has some plays he'd like to have back occasionally. It's definitely true. It's not like Lane Johnson's maybe the most perfect offensive lineman in the National Football League. Mailata's not that guy, but he is obviously improved leap and bounce. He's the top 10 left tackle. The question is going to be top 5 or top 3. That's if we were ranking 32 left tackles, that's up to debate, but
right.
Beauty's in the eye of the beholder. But the kid is super gifted, super long. It means a lot to him. It's just a matter of being a little bit more consistent.
Definitely. And this is out of his control, but he needs to stay healthy because of the lack of real, they don't have Andre Dillard there anymore. Who can go and play
it's
left
right.
tackle.
In fact, that's what I'm talking about. The depth on this offensive line is not very good. Let's be straight about it. Who's the backup left tackle?
Great question. It may not even be on the roster yet.
Steen? So. I mean, what if he should start at guard? I put him as probable. It's not a lock, but he should win it.
Mm-hmm.
So if he's, you don't want to. We know how stout and most offensive line coaches don't like juggling guys, particularly if he as a rookie. So yeah, it's a tough one.
All right, cool. Number 3, I have Jalen Hurts. He just signed a monster contract. Now nothing's going to happen to him if he takes a step back. He's still going to be on the team, but if he doesn't play and again, the schedule is tougher, right? He's going to have to match points too with a lot of great quarterbacks this year. If he, for whatever reason, has a step back, which I'm not concerned about. I know people say, well, it happened to Carson Wentz. It can happen to Jalen Hurts, but they're two different guys. Yeah. This is not about maturity. It's not about what's between the ears. It's not about working hard. It's not about relating. It's not about relating to teammates. It's simply about Jalen Hurts is now not a surprise to anybody. Was briefly the highest paid player in the league until Lamar Jackson. No one's going to be going into a game this year thinking, man, Jalen Hurts, he might be someone we got to worry about. They already know they're going to game plan for him. They've already been studying what the Eagles have been doing offensively this offseason, especially your division teams. So he's going to have to be even better. He's going to have to take another step in his game. And if he does, by the way, which I believe he has the capability of doing, and it could be watch out world. If he starts to be that kind of quarterback who sees it all before it happens and starts getting rid of the ball and doesn't even need to run as much.
Check down.
Check down. That's the big part of it. And yeah, if that happens, watch out world. But when you sign that kind of contract and then you go to the Super Bowl, right? The expectation, we're seeing this with in a different way with Joel Embiid now. There was one time where Joel Embiid was the most popular athlete in Philadelphia. They loved him. He would go out and play basketball with people on the courts in like Center City or somewhere. He could do no wrong. But once you go a few years and you don't bring home the championship, then all of a sudden you don't become as loved. So obviously with Jalen, he when you sign that kind of contract, you come under a big fishbowl.
I think Jalen's what separates him from Wentz and other athletes in this town is his willingness to take responsibility when he doesn't play well. Although he played well most games last year, but he actually does. Not only does he say it, he means it. Like he knows when it's on him. And I just have such a respect for people who take responsibility when it doesn't go well, and sometimes when it's their fault, when they know they could do better. In this town, growing up here, and you know that you've been here long enough, like so the players who are beloved are the guys like Jaws and Hurts now. Mike Schmidt could not take the criticism, and it took Schmitty really till after he retired to get it. It's a shame.
Yep.
Got to take responsibility this time. When you don't, they're going to hate on you. It's just the way it is, and I get it. I don't condone it, but that's okay. Everyone can do whatever they want.
Yeah.
So, but Jalen, I like your point about it. Yeah, he absolutely could check the ball down more. But you know what? He's so aggressive. Once the coaches trusted him, year one they didn't because that's why they ran the ball so much. Last year, when he had that great offseason and they trusted him, you saw him become in my eyes. I mean, I didn't see the AP voting for I forget what it was for MVP. But in my eyes, he was a pretty good runner-up for the MVP.
Oh, yeah.
So if he takes that next jump, take what's there. They're super aggressive with him, and we're going to get into a couple other things in the show about coaches too. But that's the next thing here. Just take that next step, and as you said very well, if it's not there, you don't need to run, and that's how you also, by the way, stay healthy.
Yep, 100%. What do you have? One bad game last year? If when all is said and done, the Chicago game was, and he got hurt in it.
He got hurt in that game.
Even before though, it wasn't the greatest game. He just got off to a bad start. But that's it. One bad game. One bad game.
I'm looking at it, and I don't look that Washington game was not his fault.
No, not at all.
Craziness of the fumble, the Quez Watkins fumble.
Yeah, no,
that was the Bears game was up and down.
Right.
No, I can't remember a game, folks. And maybe you could correct me. I mean, the rain game. How great was that comeback when they looked they were terrible and they came back?
That's hard. It's hard to play 16 and 17 great games a year. So that's why this year he's going to be under the microscope.
Right, and the people beating up Hurts for the fumble in the Super Bowl, folks, it was terrific in that game.
Yeah, I mean, he had a 10-point lead. What are you going to do?
Right. I don't. People, man, the minutia, like they're killing guys. Like he played very well. I mean, the Houston game they won. That was that Thursday night game after blowout.
That's true. I don't see that as a bad Jalen Hurts game. I felt that was a bad Eagles game. They won it, but it seemed like everybody was a
right. They were listless in that game. They wound up winning by 12, but no, he look. The Alps had a terrific season. Yeah. Now the season before, the game that I would say drove back quarterbacking. That Giants game, was it Mike Glennon and was it Fromm?
Oh, from 2 years ago, Jake Fromm. Oh my God, I don't even want to talk about that. I can't even believe I have to watch. That
was one of the worst quarterback games I've seen in my life. It was bad.
100%.
Oh, anyway, sorry.
I've seen better like small college, going up against these
Oh my God, you're making me remember go to see John Skelton at Fordham.
Oh, stop.
I call him Skeletor. Yeah, John Skelton. Eagles killer. Didn't he beat the Eagles one year?
He played. I don't think he beat him, but maybe he did. With Arizona, maybe. Either I don't remember. I don't remember.
Thursday night game. But anyway, yeah. So
all right.
Move this along here. So you think Hurts is under a microscope? Huh?
I think anytime a quarterback, any athlete signs a contract that huge and becomes that guy, that he has to maintain that level. And it's really hard. He played one bad game last year. So he literally has a stretch where he plays two bad games or two amazing games. That's going to be like, people are going to be like, oh my God, what's going on here? You know how people are in Philly, right? So in every city really, but it's a huge standard to uphold. So that's all I'm saying is that when you sign that money and become that guy, you got to live it every single day.
One thing about that game, I'm going to defend Hurts here. Remember how windy it was?
Chicago?
Oh, that game was awful for the wind. In fact, the friends who were at the game, they could not understand they knew I was going to fight them on it, but they were right because they were there and I wasn't. Like, why would the hell did they run the ball much or more? But Hurts ran it 17 times. But the problem was it was really bad wind, like I don't know, 25 to 30 miles an hour. But off the lake,
Mm-hmm.
and they had to throw the ball 37 times. It's like,
Gotta do it.
Anyway.
All right. So my number 2 guy.
Yeah.
Anybody can challenge me on this, but I honestly think he could be my number 1 guy. Like the biggest microscope could be on this guy right here, and that's Nakobe Dean. He is not your ordinary 3rd round pick because people don't view him that way. It's not his fault, but they view him as this amazing player who somehow is available in the 3rd round. He's a human being. He's not going to be Fred Warner on day 1, and may never be Fred Warner, but the expectations for Nakobe Dean right now are through the roof. You just hear we still get questions about Nakobe Dean like we were last year. We were getting, when is Nakobe Dean going to play? Even though TJ Edwards was playing great and Kaiser White was playing good enough to hold down the job. And now you fast forward this year, Adam, and if he doesn't play well, they are absolutely screwed at the linebacker position.
Yeah,
right? I mean, they have very little talent and depth at this position, which puts the microscope on him to be Nakobe Dean that everybody hopes he's going to be even more.
I like that one. I think that's fair. I wasn't really going in that direction, but the way you discussed it, I think the hype machine will be up because that's what you're referring to. On paper, that certainly was a good value to get him in a 3rd. The Eagles had to take him. I mean, it's just, I remember when Roseman said at his press conference, I guess he asked the medical staff and he asked other people and who work for him, why is he here? Like, do we have the right information? Because he shouldn't be here. It's just good value. That wasn't their plan to take him there, but you look, guy falls to you, take him. So yeah, that's a fair one. I got you.
All right, my last guy. This is sort of under the same category as Jalen Hurts, as a guy who had a very good year last year, signed a lot of money, and now is going to be asked in a year with tougher competition to be just as good. Except unlike Jalen Hurts, I worry more about this guy being able to uphold it, and that is James Bradberry. There is no question that you and I know this just from talking to people around the league and even hearing the quotes that the 49ers, watching tape going up into that game, believed that they could beat James Bradberry. They saw something on tape that was hard to see as a fan watching week after week because the Eagles were so good. But clearly on their all-22, they must have seen that he was the beneficiary most of such a great pass rush. And in the match carry deliver system, sometimes he didn't have to be defending all the way down the field or even hold his man. But there's no question the 49ers kept saying they wanted to go after him. They felt they could beat him. They didn't just wake up one day and say it. It's something that they felt like they saw. And I know from talking to people who watch the Eagles defense, and they felt that there were times that he could get away with it because the pass rush was so good. Now the pass rush is taking a little bit of hit here. No Javon Hargrave, and we'll see. I mean, I still expect it to be good. But I just wonder if he can make magic happen 2 years in a row.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking. I know we talked about after that game when we did our show then that we had heard. I didn't have the exact information you had. I just heard the Niners had they felt it was a pretty good game plan, but they never got to it because the quarterback got hurt.
Yeah.
So man, Purdy doesn't really throw the ball past 20 yards. It's all schemed open.
Yep.
It's Kyle Shanahan's the best schemer in terms of creating space to get guys open. But I do wonder what would have happened because with Samuel and Kittle and McCaffrey out of the backfield, it just and the other kid, Ayuk, who's terrific.
Mm-hmm.
We'll never got to see it, so we'll see.
There was somebody who came out. I think it was either Debo or Ayuk. All the 49ers have come out and basically.
Ayuk was.
Yeah,
Ayuk was talking smack.
Yeah, one of them came out and said that we thought we could beat Bradberry. We thought he was. They actually said it disrespectfully. They said they felt like he was nothing.
Did they mention
one of them? I can go Google it and find it. Yes, they specifically felt.
Well, I know Ayuk was talking smack. Wow, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, if they play them in the playoffs, well, no, they're playing week 13. I think they're playing week 13 here, and I think they're coming to Philly, right?
Week 13. Yeah, coming to Philly right after the Kansas City.
I know that, but I just I just cannot wait for that game. I was just like, you circle games here.
Well, listen, man,
that-
I can't wait for that month because it's Kansas City, then the San Francisco, then
out of the
Buffalo.
bye.
Yeah,
Bye.
it'll be some fun pregame shows.
Yep, I'm just going to mention that. I cannot wait to do that. I really hope teams are healthy then, because the hype for that game, no matter who the quarterback is for the Niners, and assuming like the Eagles are in one piece, that because the Niners are they're gonna carry a major grudge for that game,
right?
No matter what their situation is, because they were embarrassed, not for their own doing, because Purdy got hurt.
Mm-hmm.
As you said, they talk. Or did they talk smack at? They really disrespected the Eagles. You and I usually don't talk about that stuff, but I was shocked at the comments.
Mm-hmm.
Man, they complain like babies. Anyway,
well, they're being called the 40 whiners now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
No, it's gonna make that great game. Yeah. So those are my 5. To repeat, it's Jordan Mailata. It was I just lost my list. Oh yeah, Jordan Mailata. Jordan Davis.
Yes.
Jordan Mailata, Jalen Hurts, Nakobe Dean, James Bradberry. We're going to get to your players and coaches most under the microscope in a second. First, we want to pause and hear from our good friends at Sky Motor Cars.
Sky Motor Cars in Westchester is a different sort of dealership. All it takes is one look at their Highline pre-owned vehicles that people all over the country want and need. Owner Brett Schulter, make sure you don't spend a dime of your money before you purchase the car. Sky Motor Cars allows you to make all the decisions regarding your next vehicle. At Sky Motor Cars, you never have to spend more than necessary. Visit SkyMotorCars.com today or call 610-918-7225.
And if you stop in at Sky Motor Cars, make sure you tell them Adam and Geoff sent you. You'll get a great deal.
And the place that the players go to get their cars, man. So a bunch of Eagles going back to Sheldon Brown, what Michael told us he did.
Mm-hmm.
So many players have gone over there over the years, even players that are not with the Eagles. Marcus Peters, Wentz did.
Yep.
Landon Dickerson. What's that?
Avante Maddox.
Avante, yeah. Oh, yeah. He did a commercial for. Oh, Nelson Aguilar did a great commercial for them a couple years ago.
There you go. Yep.
Yeah. So, and I know, I think Paul Reed did of the Sixers. What other Sixers have? But anyway, great place there in Westchester, right off the 202.
There you go. Also, check out our friends at PHLSportsNation.com. They're enhancing the fans' experience with their coverage of all Philadelphia sports teams. For the fan, by the fan is their motto. So make sure you check them out at PHLSportsNation.com and on Twitter at PHLSportsNation. All right, Adam, let's hear some of your guys that you think are under the microscope in 2023.
Start on offense, Tyler Steen. There's no question about it. He's being asked to play a position he's never played before. This is Jeff Stoutland's call. He thinks he can do it, obviously, or they want to draft him, and we'll see. And Stout, we trust. When he wants to do something, he's almost always right. And the Eagles, as you know, their front office is super high respect for him. So we'll see how it goes. He's the odds-on favorite, though he's never played it. It's the way I see it based on what we've heard. So we'll see if he wins it. It's a 3-man race. But
certainly,
Steen,
I mean, he's under the microscope because if he doesn't win it, then you're like, you got a guy in Driscoll who's probably better as a backup, and then Cam Jurgens is probably better as a center. I mean, you want this guy to be that guy.
Exactly, and that's why they probably need to sign a swing offensive lineman, a guy who could play guard or tackle. That by training camp doesn't have to be now. Doesn't matter now. It matters in training camp in a big way.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to wait till the start of the season. That would not be smart. So. Yeah, that would be on Steen. And then here's a little bit of a sleeper one. And we talked about it when they signed this guy. And I said, look, I know they like Grant Calcaterra. He did a nice job when he and Stoll had to fill in for Goddard. It was kind of a nice surprise. Not that Calcaterra is a good blocker, but he was a willing blocker. Mm-hmm. With Dan Arnold in there, that's a competition. And the microscope's going to be on him. He's got to beat up Darnold as far as I'm concerned.
And don't forget Tyree Jackson probably is in this mix as well. And Tyree is a guy who actually showed you he can be inadequate to willing blocker, and he's also 6'8" and huge. So that's a really good point because it's not like they're going to keep 5 tight ends or even 4. So at first when you put it to me, I was like, great Calcaterra, but
they
no, you're right.
No, they can keep 4 now. Now when you do that,
you could,
gotta go skinny other places. You know how that works.
Yeah, I think ideally they would love to keep 3 and have a 4th on the practice squad. But you're right.
I'm telling you, Tyree Jackson
mm-hmm.
was going to make the team. I mean, I remember being told this pretty strongly, like we're not cutting him, and then he got hurt.
Yeah.
But he broke his back. It was the day we were at practice. I think he had a back fracture.
Right.
But then later, was that Dallas game he tore his ACL? Was that right?
Yes, I believe that was the game. Yeah.
So anyway, now he's all the way back. You and I saw him in Miami last season in training camp. We were like, "Holy, is that Tyree Jackson? How much weight did this guy
And
put?"
dude looked like he was like I'm trying to think, like the Undertaker. That's how like tall and big he was.
6'7", right? Mark
I was
Calloway.
like, man, so muscular and all that. Yeah.
By the way, the Undertaker played college basketball.
Really? Where at?
I don't know. He's from Texas. Yeah, he was.
What's his name? Mark something, right?
Mark Calloway is his real name. Yeah.
Mark Calloway. He doesn't look like a Mark Calloway.
You know, I'm big on the wrestlers' names. I don't know why.
It makes me think of my cousin Vinny. Is it Calloway or Galloway? No,
Right. Oh, right. Wow. Look at
Mark
you.
Galloway.
Joe
He's
Pesci.
dead. I'm Mark Calloway. No,
What? Joe Pesci. Wow. Nice call by you.
yeah. All right. So who else we got?
All right. So that would be my offensive one. But then defensively, we'll get to coaches in a minute. Obviously, no player's got more pressure on him. First of all, to stay on the straight and narrow than Jalen Carter.
Oh, that's a great one.
And
Definitely under the microscope.
I mean, you could say Jordan Davis. You want to rank him one. I get that. He's, as you were saying earlier, he's big expectations. He better perform and stay in good shape and have the stamina and all that and conditioning. But Jalen Carter, and that quote was pretty good by him. After he was drafted, he said, he thanked the Eagles. He said, thank you for believing in me and all that. Well, now he's got to hold up his end of the bargain and not only stay in good shape, but stay on the straight and narrow, and we'll see. But a ton of pressure on him to do the right thing.
Sure.
Particularly off the field. Look, there's a reason why the Seahawks didn't want him.
I mean, it really underscores just the whole inside of the defensive line with Jordan Davis and him. I mean, there's no Javon Hargrave. Right now, there's no Linval Joseph, and there's no Ndamukong Suh. So you got three guys,
Yeah.
In fact, you can make an argument that there's a microscope now on Fletcher Cox, who has to kind of go back to being a pretty dominant player to keep this ship afloat.
That was what I was saying earlier when you were talking about those guys. But
yeah.
I was blown away by the Seahawks of all teams passing on them, and there was the biggest need by far, not even close on their football team, was D tackle. They didn't have a starting D tackle for the draft, and they passed on him.
Yep.
So, but again, the Eagles did their own due diligence, and they're pretty confident that they can handle him, and we'll see what happens. But he would be my number one guy if I had to rank them.
Yeah,
it would be Carter, one, because of the off the field problems.
Mm-hmm.
It's Jordan Davis, 1A.
Yeah.
Steen, 2.
Mm-hmm.
And then the projected starting safety tandem at Edmonds on a 1-year deal. Again, I think it's his third straight 1-year deal. And the expectation is he's going to start, and he's looking for a new beginning here. Not that there's a ton of pressure on him, because quite frankly, their safety position is not looking great on paper now.
Right.
Like it is.
Yeah.
And then Sidney Brown's going to be asked to do things he's not done before. He was a box player with he covered tight ends only because they were there. But
I like that. They were there.
Well, based on our scouting sources said, look, and Greg Cosell was very critical. Greg's just telling he doesn't know anything about the kid, though he's a super high character kid. He just goes by what the tape told him, and Greg really backed us up what we had heard. What I just put out there was I was talking to someone a week ago, and he goes, man, if Philly asked him to cover, they just didn't do it. He goes, the tight ends are actually in the box with him, and he put his hands on him because he's really physical inside the box. Like, he would knife in there. Like, he's a physical player, but he would miss tackles sometimes. That's true. But the information we have is a little bit different than what Greg had. Greg said he missed too many tackles, but he was not. What I don't think Greg understood is what he was asked to do, but our personnel guy said he knows from dealing with the people at Illinois that he was asked to do certain things, not certain things. Now he's going to be asked to cover more.
Right.
And we'll see. But he's a super high character kid, really smart, and is the Eagles like them probably more than some other teams do, but he's a super leader. And I'm going to be very interested to see how he makes he's going to be a safety, but it's sort of transition to be a little bit more in coverage than he did at Illinois.
Yeah, definitely. I'm excited to see this kid. I totally agree that for a 3rd round pick, both him and Steen really are under the microscope, because it's, I don't know, last time 2 3rd round picks really had a pathway to become starters on the Eagles.
Good point.
So quickly as these two guys do. So
and honestly,
great opportunity. Yeah.
It's rare for a team to go all in on a 3rd round pick. Like that doesn't happen. In fact, third round picks, as explained to me, middle to low end starter. Fourth rounders, high end backup, bottom of the end of starting. That's the way it's explained to me. Now, the fact that, as you said, this is a good point. I hadn't even thought of that. The fact that they're going all in on Steen, thinking that they could convert him and he should be not a lot, but he should be the starter. Sidney Brown, the way they talk about this guy, I mean, wow. You know?
Yeah,
So
definitely.
we'll see, but the pressure's on this kid. By the way, his brothers are really talented running back for the Bengals. If you like fantasy, if you're into fantasy,
Yep.
I drafted him in the dynasty league with you, like your last pick. He's got a chance to be the backup there.
You're drafting guys already?
Oh gosh, people are in best ball leagues, and people are crazy with fantasy. People are drafting that. It's insane.
That's amazing. Love it.
I can't, but yeah. Anyway.
All right, so we got a couple of coaches you want to bring up for under the microscope, and I couldn't agree with you more. I've seen
and
the
it couldn't
names.
be more obvious, right?
Yes.
Look, and here, let me explain Brian Jones. I know they love him. I know the Panthers ran on him. There was another team we were told was in on him to be their OC. The Eagles beat him to it, and they have a super high belief in him. And they've got Kevin Patullo, we know is Sirianni's right-hand man. We were told he is, as one source, league source said, he's the secret sauce Patullo to the game planning for Steichen last season. So he'll be heavily involved there. And there were some teams that were looking at Patullo potentially, and the Eagles smartly promoted him. It's highly thought of, and he'll be an OC somewhere in his career. If Johnson becomes a head coach, maybe he replaces him. Who knows? But the fact of the matter is that the microscope is absolutely going to be on him because this offense is so dynamic and the coaching has been so good here. And Johnson was also part of the brain trust, not only to coach the quarterback, Hurts, who's known since he was a kid, but also in the game planning each week. And now it's his run. And the pressure's going to be on him. He hasn't called plays at this level. He called plays at the college level, but now it's the pro level. And you mentioned their schedule. Pressure's going to be on this guy. Now, he may not think so, but and I know Sirianni tries to deflect that stuff, but it's just the expectations are so high for this offense. And
100%.
That's what you were talking about earlier, and I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, definitely. And then obviously on the other side of the ball,
even more, this town, and you know this, you've been here for decades, with the blitzing and not blitzing, and the Fangio system with Desai's going to run. You don't really blitz. It's an execution style defense. You selectively blitz. This is not a blitz happy scheme. You're just not. But play calling is an art. You got to know when to do it. I know that's going to be out there. People are going to be looking for it. But we talked to John DiFilippo about him. John coached with him in 21. John said he did a really good job. He didn't know Sean, but he had his high respect for him. Talked to NFL general manager, knows him, who's worked with. I don't know if he worked with him, but he knows him. This GM said he was on their list of, had they not, did they promote this team? I forget, but anyway, he was on their list of potential defense coordinators. So he's well respected. I know the Seahawks love this guy. He had a bunch of responsibilities there. So, but hey, now he's going to be at DC for the second time in his career. We know he knows Philly. He talked about that. Spoke really well in his press conference. But it only matters how you coach. And the other part about this, before we get out of here, and it's really important for both Johnson and Desai. One of the things that the Eagles loved about Sirianni when he interviewed with them, and I'm not saying this was the number one thing why they hired him, but Sirianni made it clear in his interview in the compound at Jeffrey Lurie's house in Florida that he was super big on player development, and that was the lost art with Doug Peterson's staff. They just did not in the last couple of years, and I know there were reasons for it, but it's not acceptable. You got to develop their players here. And these players here developed, there's no question about it.
So far, yes, they have. Absolutely no question about it. Love it. Brian Johnson, Sean Desai, no doubt about it. Because if either the offense or defense takes a step back, which is going to be hard not to because of how good they were last year, but I mean like a real step back. If they're just not good for whatever reason, those guys are going to stick out like a sore thumb because they're the new guys on the block.
Be patient.
Yes. So as we end this, let me ask you this. Aaron Moorhead enters his fourth straight year as Eagles wide receivers coach. Does that qualify him for a Lifetime Achievement Award?
I know. It's receiver okay. Bob McNeil. Yep.
No, wasn't there from wasn't yeah, Bob
The
McNeil.
chip staff,
Right.
Bob
Yeah.
McNeil, right?
Yep.
Let's see. We had the immortal Gunter Brewer.
Gunther Brewer. We had Carson Walsh. We had oh, who else? There was one more guy. Oh, Mike Groh was in there,
Mike
but then
Groh,
he
yeah,
went
well,
and
he's
became the
great.
offensive
He was
coordinator. Yeah, he was actually good. Yeah.
Terrific, yeah.
Right. So that was 4 in 5 years. And then
It was
Moorhead
bad.
was
I know,
5 and
but-
6.
And then who else?
And then Moorhead became the 5th one in 6
Right.
years. Yeah.
Right. No, he deserves an achievement. Now, also D-line coaches. It was ridiculous amount of D-line coaches, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Chris Wilson, Philip Daniel, who was Chip's D-line? Oh, Jerry Azanaro.
Right.
And then who is it now? Oh, and then Tracy Rocker. So it was 4 in about 5 or 6 years there too.
And then don't forget they wanted to bring, and I don't know what happened with them.
Oh, and Washburn, wasn't he the D-line coach?
Jeremiah. Well,
Jeremiah?
he was
Yeah.
he wasn't the guy, but he was contributing to it.
Right.
And when he's a personnel director, it's the strangest thing. But remember, what was the bald-headed guy's name from college football who Andy had? It didn't work out. They got rid of him. And then I think
The bald-headed
might-
guy that Andy Reid brought in?
right. And then he wound up being fired. Players
Dasher?
didn't like him.
Dasher? No,
No,
not-
that's
no,
not-
no. Oh, Rory Segrist.
That's it. You got it. Nailed it. Good call.
Yeah.
I think Doug might have brought him into Jacksonville. I'd have to look it up.
He is. I'm pretty sure he's on
But-
Doug's staff.
Remember, he was supposed to come here. It was actually reported,
Yep.
and it didn't wind up happening. I checked into it, and I got some convoluted reason. And I didn't believe it, so I didn't go with it. I was like, someone's protecting somebody. I just didn't seem right. But it didn't go well for him when he was here under Andy.
No.
He was a college coach.
Yeah.
And sometimes it just doesn't work out. Like Gunter Brewer, it did not work out for him at all. He was a legendary college coach, but it didn't work out here.
Right.
But you're right, man. Boy, did they have turnover with those coaches. But like you said, good for Aaron Moorhead. Yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
I'm telling you, Lifetime Achievement Award. He's got it. All right. That's going to do it for this episode of Inside the Birds, the leading podcast at Eagles Intel. That was fun. I enjoyed doing it. I think,
Good idea,
it's
man.
fun to kind of go through that, and I think the fans will enjoy it. So, as always, we thank you for flying with us inside the bird.